Hello and welcome all of you once again to the 16th edition of India Digital Summit. Today we have with us Mr. Harshil Mathur, CEO and co-founder Razorpay, and Mr. Sambhav Jain, founder FamPay, for a fireside chat on digitally enabling the journeys of today's Greenhorn startups and SMBs. But before we start, we would like to thank our digital financial management partner EasyBuzz, conversational messaging partner Gupshup, session partner GoQuick, gold partners Manorama Online, Blink Digital and Yellow.ai, and silver partners ShareChat. Now to start the session, let me welcome Mr. Jain. Dear audience, please keep posting your questions in the chat box. The speaker will try to answer as many questions as possible. Over to you, Sambhav.
Yeah, hi guys. Just quickly introducing myself. I'm Sambhav, founder of FamPay. We are building India's first neobank for teenagers. And welcome, Harshil. Super glad to be doing this fireside chat with you.
Hey, hi Sambhav. Thanks for inviting and thanks for hosting this. And thanks IMA for inviting this. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess Harshil needs no introduction, but the only thing I'd like to say is, Harshil, first of all, congratulations on all the things you guys have done, you guys have built, and you've been an inspiration for like even early stage startups like us, especially coming from the same alma mater. We always looked up to Razorpay, you guys, and that is what even ignited us to apply for YC and start our journey. So thanks for all of that.
No, I'm really glad to hear that, Sambhav.
So one question I think that a lot of people might have had to ask you is like when you started, you can also share like briefly about the journey and the pain points you faced, which led you to building Razorpay. Is like why did you choose to like solve the problem from a B2B standpoint and not build a B2C business? Would like to first start with that.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think it's a very valid question, and it's a question that has been asked a lot of times in our journey, right? From when we started to even today, a lot of people ask like, why don't you guys do something on B2C side, or what are your plans on B2C? I think like let me share how when we started, right? Like I don't think when we started we had an idea of startups or we really thought, okay, we'll build this company and then raise funding and everything. We started with a problem.
Yeah.
What me and Shashank were sitting in different countries at that point of time, and we were trying to accept payments in India. And we felt that it was very, very complicated to accept payments in India. There was no dearth of payment companies per se, but nobody was building for startups and SMBs in particular, right? So when we tried to accept payments, I think we faced a lot of challenges and complications in accepting payments, simply because the whole process was built for large companies. And this is 2013, 2014, and we felt that that was when the internet boom was happening in the country, and we were very certain that a lot of startups will come up and a lot of small businesses will go digital in the next couple of years. And if there's nobody building a payment platform for them, then that will really stunt that growth. Of course, the opportunity here was also that if somebody builds a payment platform, then them and some of these companies scale up, you could grow big with them. And I think that was the entire thesis for us to start Razorpay, right? Like we didn't really think B2B or B2C or what would be more exciting or what would carry more limelight. Right? That was just a very simple problem statement that we came to, and we felt that okay, this is something that we feel strongly about and we need to solve for it.
But
And
like
that's how we started building Razorpay.
like you mentioned that you didn't know like it's very relatable. Like when we start with a problem, we don't know what startups are about,
Yeah.
fundraising and how big it can become. Did you think that okay, like this problem definitely had an opportunity? You felt that okay, this might be uh, faced by a lot of people and a lot of businesses. Did you actually think that this can become so big and it has the opportunity to become this bigger business?
Yeah, honestly, no, right? I don't think when you start a company, you feel that okay, someday this company will be worth, let's say, more than $1 billion, and today, of course, Razorpay is worth more than $7.5 billion. I don't think you think in that terms, or like that is not even a criteria, right? Like at the
Yeah.
starting point, because you're so busy with so many problems that you can see with starting up, so many problems you can see with just being able to survive, right? Like all of these questions are not even on top of your mind, right? So I mean, we're fortunate that I think that the theory that we have or the thesis that we have turned out to be even stronger than what we had anticipated, right? Like to give a sense, right? Like when we started building Razorpay, right, we pegged the entire market size that was available to us at, let's say, about $60 billion, right? And remember, because we wrote it in our B plan that we were just writing for ourselves, right? And today, Razorpay alone does more volume than that, right? Like we alone single-handedly do more than $70 billion of volume through our platform, right? So in a growing country like India, it's very hard to predict market sizes. It's very hard to predict what is the size of the opportunity. And that's why, like, the best way to start is just find a problem and build towards that, and everything else gets sorted out with that, right? And as we scaled up as well, right? Like even today, like a lot of people ask us, why not B2C? Why don't you do something for B2C? And the question, the reason we don't want to do things on the B2C side is, again, same. We see so many problems on B2B side. We see so many problems that startups and SMBs in this country face. We've solved a lot on the payment side, but now we are doing things on neo banking side. We are doing things on corporate credit card side. We are doing things on payroll, vendor payments, tax payments, and every part of the B2B journey that we see. There are so many problems that just we literally don't have time to look at anything else, right? So it's not a question of what can generate more growth for us, what can generate more valuation for us, or anything else. It's simply a question of what we see is the biggest problem that we can solve, and our core skill set and expertise and what we understand about businesses. We just feel that we are in the right position to solve the problems for SMBs. So we want to just continue to stick true to that and ensure that we keep delivering that, because that's the place that we understand the best, right? So everything else just seems like a distraction, and because of that, I think at least for the next near term, we don't foresee Razorpay looking at anything on the B2C side, just because of the amount of problems that exist for SMBs and startups in the country even today.
No, that completely makes sense. So talking more about like B2B, then you have chosen the route to solve problems for SMBs and all of that. What are some of the like harder problems that you face as a company when you're trying to build a B2B business?
Yeah, I think, see, a lot of times people don't understand the challenges of a B2B business, because B2B business exists in kind of like a background. Like you don't see them day in, day out. There's no app that you download, right? And so there are a lot of problems that a B2B business faces, right? The first one is the visibility itself, right? And that visibility is not important just in terms of raising money. It's also important for hiring. It's important for getting customers, right? Like Razorpay, for example, never does any kind of mass marketing advertisements, right? So how do people discover about us? And the bigger challenge is that even if our own customer base knows about us, for hiring, you need the larger pool of talent, right? So how does an employee tomorrow wake up and say, "Hey, I want to I want to apply at Razorpay," when they don't even see Razorpay on a daily basis and they don't use it on a daily basis? It's very hard for them to relate to that as a problem. And just hiring is one part of the problem. You have customer acquisition, you have fundraising, everything else requires discovery. Everything requires people to notice you. So that's the first problem that we face. The second is that getting the right insights for our own team becomes hard, because let's say there's a product manager building something on Razorpay. How does he get a sense of what the customer needs? Because they are not running a business themselves, right? So you can, if you're building a B2C business, for example, if you're building a shopping cart platform, or let's say a food delivery company, the person building it can be a consumer itself, so they can think what a customer needs. They can think what the customer would want tomorrow. But for a person building within Razorpay, it's very hard for them to get a sense. So you need to speak a lot to your customers. You need to understand their problems very well, because those don't come in natively. You don't know what a business owner needs tomorrow, right? So that is the second problem that you need to solve for. The third challenge that we face as a org is that, and there are both pros and cons of it, that the visibility is far lower, right? And because of that low visibility, right? Like a lot of times people want to like, the first part is more relatability, but the visibility itself is its own problem, right? People want to work in companies where they can go out and tell people that, hey, I work in this company, and have you used this app? Have you tried this app, right? Versus when you work in a company like Razorpay, right? Those things become a little harder, right? Like if you tell your friends or family or relatives that, hey, you work in Razorpay, they don't know what it is, and you can't even tell them what it is, right? Because they won't understand it, right? So these are some of the problems, but I think like we have found various ways to solve for them. I think while we might not be as visible as a brand, as a consumer brand will be, we have invested a lot in creating our own unique brand for ourselves in the ecosystem, where people know about Razorpay, where the kind of audience that we want to attract know about Razorpay, right? So we have built a sole brand around ourselves, and not by marketing or media advertising, but just by talking about what we do a lot more, right? And as a B2B company, you need to do, like as a consumer company, you have a choice to talk about yourself, or even if you don't talk about yourself, people know what you do. But as a B2B company, you need to talk and tell people what you do. Otherwise, it's very hard for them to relate and join you.
No, I totally
Similarly, for our Yeah, you're good.
Totally agreed, and I think you guys have done a commendable job there, because whenever it comes to like a lot of startups that are being talked about, like those are mainly like B2C startups because they are facing the consumers. If you talk about
Yeah.
Swiggy, Cred, everyone is like it's out there, right? But when we talk about Razorpay, it's one of those few B2B companies which everyone knows about, and it's primarily because of, I think, you talk openly about the mission that you guys are on to people. Lot I have seen a lot of threads about the kind of customer support that you guys have, how you treat your clients, and how all of their problems are solved so proactively. So I think
Yep.
all of these things have really built a great brand for you guys.
Yeah, yeah. And those things are important, right? As a B2B company, you don't have a choice. Otherwise, you end up being in the background and then you can't have the best talent out there. You can't get the best customers to know about you and everything, right? And it is proactive from our side, right? To some extent. Of course, we don't want to overdo it. Like, we don't want to do things that don't make sense for a B2B company, like mass advertising and stuff.
Yeah.
But there are things that you can do to increase the brand presence, even when people generally notice the B2C audience. Similarly, like the second problem that I stated, right? Like, we to understand customers, right? We do a lot of conversations with customers, right? Like, and everybody in the company is encouraged a lot to talk to customers, because we know that, like, our customer base is not us. So we need to talk to those customers to understand what they are thinking, what they are trying. And that is
Yeah.
one of the reasons, like, when we went to neo banking and when we launched a corporate credit card, like, a lot of payment, no payment company, not just India but across the world, very few payment companies have tried those things. The reason we tried those things is because we kept speaking to our customers. We kept asking them, what are the problems that you face? And when they said that, okay, credit is the biggest problem, we need flexible credit, we said, okay, why don't we launch a credit card? When they said that, okay, you solve payments for me, but when I have to do disbursement, when I have to pay salaries, taxes, vendors, everything, that part is still, I'm not able to automate because my bank account doesn't do all of those
Yeah.
things. That's where we went out and launched Razorpay X, right? So like, we do this annual event called FTX, right? You have been there a couple of times as well. And this was, we were one of the first B2B companies to organize an event of that scale, right? Like, when we organized it first time 3 years back, we said we'll bring all the major fintech players, we'll bring all the major participants in fintech, industry folks, and everyone under one single roof to talk about fintech. And the purpose was fairly simple, right? So that people know more about what fintech does, what companies like ours do, right? It's very hard for an outsider to relate to those things, and you have to do all of those things when you are operating in a B2B space, so that A, your customers can talk to you and tell you what they face, and B, prospective employees, prospective customers, prospective investors, everyone else knows about what you are doing.
No, definitely, and I think the core problem, if we can also phrase it like, it's as a B2B company, it's very hard to build trust because you're not out there. So how do you go about building trust amongst investors, potential team members, and the consumers, everyone? And I think things like FTX have been really out of the box. We have attended it ourselves, and we have seen like the real change, even the kind of event you guys organize, it brings, and the kind of awareness it's created. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things I feel that is common between like probably B2B and B2C fintechs would be problems like facing frauds. So I think in our early journey, we have faced a lot of things related to frauds. Like a lot of people are just waiting out there. There are different communities which goes by the name like they just want to loot all of these systems, and even if there is someone else who's launching an offer, they'll try to hack your system and use your cards and whatnot, right? There are a lot of crazy things that happen on the fraud side. Do you have an interesting story or the kind of frauds that you guys faced in the early journey, and how did probably you guys went about like solving for them and building the security aspect of the product?
Yeah, I think, see, if you're building on a fintech site, right, like, fraud is something that you have to accept right from day one, right? Like, there's no question about it. And no matter how much you accept or how much you prepare for it, people will find a way to beat a system. People will find a way to find loopholes in the system. Like, it's impossible for a payments or a fintech company to say that, okay, we have zero fraud, right? Like, I mean, the only way you can have that is that if you are not allowing anyone to get on your platform, because people will find a way to break systems. People will always find. The only thing you can do is build the right systems to alert you, so that when something like that happens and say people exploit our system, like, you immediately get to know it, and the impact is fairly limited. I mean, on day one, I think we were PCI DSS compliant, we were ISO 27K compliant, so that ensured that at least customer data was very secure. But people would always find a way to beat our systems. For example, in very early days, somebody started a website and signed up on Razorpay and started using Razorpay, and they found a way uh, to basically bypass the authentication that Razorpay used to do when the payment was marked successful, right? So they found a way to mark a failed payment as successful, and what it essentially means is that if you mark a payment failed as successful, our systems are automated. You'll get money in your account which has not been debited from customers, right? And they found it, and then they did few test transactions with it, and then they decided, okay, this works. And within one day, they tried to withdraw like 10 crores from our systems using that.
And
And
like first, uh, uh, like you get to know it over the years, like okay, like you have to accept frauds and how it happens, but like the first experience that you face as a
yeah,
fintech fraud, you probably would have thought that it's you are getting growth, and for the first few hours you might have thought that the volumes are increasing or something like that.
yes. Well, I mean, because 10 crore was higher than the monthly volume that Razorpay used to do at that point of time, right? So there's no way you could go unnoticed with that amount of money, right? Like, so very suddenly do that amount of volume. At one second, we were like, okay, great. Like, it seems like an amazing day, right? Like, a lot of volume happening. And then you look and see, okay, this is one website doing this. And you look at the website and see, this doesn't look like a kind of website that could be doing that kind of volume, right? So,
Yeah.
so you look deeper into it. And fortunately, payment settlement timelines are 2 days after transaction happens. So you have enough time to evaluate those. And we looked into it deeply. We, of course, it took us some time, but we realized that, okay, this is all fraudulent payments. We shut it down and disabled the business and then blacklisted it. The business tried signing up again because they realized, okay, like I can just create another account. But this time you were ready, right? Like you were aware, right? So
Yeah.
we got it whenever they tried to sign up from the same IP again and again, and of course we fixed the bug immediately. So no money was lost, but you just figure out like, okay, then like and maybe if they had done small transactions here and there, you would not even noticed it, and
Yeah.
they would have gone through. Or maybe if Razorpay was really large at that point of time, then like maybe 5-10 crore, like for example at current scale, like 5-10 crore would not have been noticed that immediately. But of course, as you scale up, you notice these things, you build a lot of checks and balances, and at today's scale, like we have so many checks and balances built against anyone trying to exploit systems that something like this happens, the reconciliation will catch it immediately, right?
Yeah.
But that's the challenge of building in fintech. I'm sure you have built a fintech company. You would have some similar stories to share as well.
Yeah, a lot. Actually, in the beginning phase, when we hadn't even launched, there's one incident that we just put the app on the Play Store, and we hadn't started marketing, we hadn't started acquisition, and suddenly one day, just it had been a week or so, we started seeing a lot of volumes and downloads, and we were like, okay, we are getting organic growth. We did not even post it about anywhere, and we just launched it on Play Store, and the the issue was that there was some offer being run by some, I don't remember exactly, by Amazon or someone, that if you use a new card you'll get a 300 rupee cashback on some payment. So people were just signing up, they were signing up for our cards, and they were using that card to claim that cashback. So no money was lost again from our side, but we could figure out, okay, these are not like high intent real transactions. Some people are just trying
Yeah,
to make use of someone else's offer. And so that is when we figured out, okay, and the scale was huge in just a
yeah,
couple of days. So then that is when we started building a lot of checks, like probably no more than 3 accounts cannot be created from one device, having device binding, and a lot of anomaly systems, like if what we have some expectation of daily volumes, if it's exceeding, let's say, 15 or 20% of that, we'll get some flags, we'll do the reconciliation and all of that to check if something is breaking or not. So yeah, it's very interesting. Like while building a fintech, the kind of challenges you face, it's very unique.
yeah. Well, I see one of the best things that works to catch fraudsters is that like most fraudsters are very impatient. So when they discover a fraud, they, like even in your case in our case, the only thing that works is that they try to exploit it at significant scale quickly, and that is what you notice immediately. That, okay, how can
Yeah.
something happen that immediately?
And the thing was, it was like a, I would say it was like a 48-hour war. So we were making certain changes, checks and balances on the product, and they were actually hacking some other way to get it done, right? So it was like we are adding some checks, and they are figuring out some other way to do the same transaction, and then we were also blocking that. So actually, those 2 days helped us realize what are the the importance of checks and balances and also building the right system. Um, so yeah, that I think these people are the best people to hire for QAs because they go to so depth with your product. They are testing it again and again and finding out flaws.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what do you think about, like, you mentioned about building for SMBs? How does the future look like for SMBs? How has the market evolved in the last few years, and what do you think the future of that is?
Yeah, I think in the last 5-10 years, there's been a lot of innovation and digitization that has happened targeting consumers, right? So everything that a consumer does, right, from ordering food to ordering groceries to managing money to everything else that a consumer does, right? Like our lives have significantly changed because of internet and because of digitization. But when we speak to SMBs and businesses today, even today, right, most of the digitization hasn't reached them, right? So when you talk about a business's life today, right, what does a business typically do? They have to procure materials, they have to buy stuff, they have to pay vendors, they have to pay suppliers, they have to collect money, they have to get access to credit. And I'm just speaking on the financial side. They have to do a lot more things like logistics and everything else and marketing and other things that they have to do on the core business side. I think most of those things are still done the same way that they were done 10 years back. And a lot of effect of technology and internet has not yet reached them. I think that is where the opportunity lies, and that is where the problems lie as well, right? And I think in the next 5-10 years, the kind of innovation that we saw on consumer side, we'll see similar level of innovation, if not more, on the B2B side, where the way small businesses and large businesses manage money, manage compliances, manage procurement, manage distribution, and other things is going to fundamentally change because of technology and because of internet. And I think, and that will be exciting and very interesting space to watch for, because like SMBs are the powerhouse of the country. They power a significant portion of exports. They power a significant portion of our GDP. And I think if we digitize them and if we can make their lives even 5-10% more efficient, that unlocks a lot of value for the country. And I think I'm personally very excited about that. We are doing our own focus on that. We are trying to digitize the financial lives of these SMEs. So right from the way they accept money to the way they disperse money to the way they pay to vendors, suppliers, everyone, the way they get access to credit. I think all of those things are today done by calling people, by going to banks, by through Excel files, through Excel sheets, through manual processes. I think all of that will start happening in the click of a button, the way consumers do everything in a click of a button today. I think that is really what we want to empower SMBs with, that you have a mobile phone in your hand, you can download an app, or you can open a desktop site, you can press a few buttons, get access to all of those things within clicks. You don't have to call somebody, you don't have to call a banker, you don't have to call your broker or somebody else to get access to those things. And I think that is where the opportunity will rise. So I'm very bullish on SMB as a segment. A lot of people are building for it right now, and I can see a lot of young startups coming up in this category. But it will be a very exciting area to watch. And I think a lot of companies will get built out, a lot of unicorns will come out of this. But the base issue remains the same, right? I think the problems exist, and those problems will be solved by somebody or the other.
Right. What do you think, like fintech being a regulatory space, right? What do you think is the role of regulators to play in this? I think regulators have been super helpful in the last few years. They have come up with a lot of innovative guidelines. How has that been a contributor for the SMB space in overall? And where do you feel like the regulators can even help more for this future to shape up faster in a faster pace?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think this session of SMBs is a big problem, and I don't think any entity in itself can say that they'll be able to do it. So everybody in the ecosystem needs to work together towards it. There's a role that regulators will play. There's a role that ecosystem providers will play. There's a role companies like NPCI will play, and there's a role like private entities like us will play.
Right.
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 I think the best thing that regulators can do, and I think they have done a lot of this in the past. I can speak from financial side, right? The kind of innovation that has happened on regulatory side in the last couple of years has really been one of the biggest drivers of digitization, right? Like right from things like UPI to things that are happening on NBFC AA side to make data more easily available to the innovation happening on lending side. I think a lot of these on ground changes is going to really change the way SMEs work. We are all aware of things that are happening on the OCEN framework that is coming out to enable lending for these businesses. There's a lot of these protocols that are being developed. So I think the role that regulators can play is just unblock things and open up things in the right way, right? So that people don't suffer because the regulation hasn't caught up. But at the same time, we don't over-regulate stuff before the innovation has happened, right? And this that fine balance that regulators constantly need to thread, right? And you don't want to regulate something before the innovation has happened at all, but you also don't want to leave customers unprotected for the lack of regulations, right? And I think that will be a hard road to walk. But the great thing is that the intent is there, right? I think, right, everyone that I speak to, right, from government to regulators, we can see that there's a lot of intent to build the right set of policy, build the right set of regulations to enable these businesses to come online, to encourage these businesses to come online. We have all seen the kind of things that have happened on the, like, for example, right, from zero MDR to GST to a lot of these pushes that have happened have really led to a lot of these businesses being taking the call and saying, we need to go digital to enable the next set of growth. I think COVID has really accelerated that trend because during COVID, while of course on one side a lot of businesses were suffering that they couldn't service their customers offline the way they used to, but a lot of businesses used that as an opportunity to find a way to serve their customers online and digitize themselves. I think we need to just keep that momentum going on, right? Even when if and when things start coming back to normal and things start coming back to the way they used to be before COVID, we don't lose that momentum, and the businesses that have gone digital continue to maintain that digital presence so that, like, next time something like this happens, they're not caught off guard. So I think everyone will have to work together towards it. The best answer I would say is that there's need for an open dialogue. The regulators need to talk to the industry needs to talk to the customers, and everyone basically needs to say what is needed to ensure that the ecosystem moves forward as digital in the next couple of years.
No, that's something interesting that you spoke about, not over-regulating the space as well and creating that balance before the industry is even ready for innovation. And I think there are a lot of discussions happening around, let's say, the tokenization and the auto debit thing that has impacted some businesses adversely, and there are a lot of conversations happening around that. Would love to have your take on tokenization and, let's say, the changes on auto debit that have come.
Yeah, so I think, like, most of these regulations, I feel that they are really needed in the country, right? Like for example, if you talk about tokenization, right, like loss of card information is a known problem across the world, right? And we have had multiple cases in countries like US and Europe where card numbers have gotten leaked. The fortunate thing for them is that the customers are digitally aware. So when card number and other information is leaked, the customers understand this and know how to secure this information. We are a country where people are coming online for the first time. They are transacting digitally for the first time, right? And when such things happen in such an ecosystem, these customers who have never transacted digitally online suddenly face a fraud. They just lose trust on the entire system and they never want to come online again.
Right.
And there's a need to protect these customers. So I really understand the intent of the regulators there. The only thing that we need is that we need to balance the fine line between security, but at the same time, like, brushing through things where the ecosystem is not prepared. And that's why we were really glad that RBI extended the deadline for tokenization and allowed enough time for the industry to prepare for it and ensure that the customer data is secure, but at the same time nobody faces sudden inconvenience because of it. Businesses don't suffer because of it. So I think that and I think that extension threaded that line very closely, by allowing enough time, but at the same time I really believe that the long-term direction of tokenization is very, very useful in the sense that more customers will be able to touch digital payments because they would not have to constantly worry about fraud or losing their card number and things like that when they transact online. Similarly, when you talk about recurring payments, right, one of the biggest challenges even in developed markets like US is that you sign up for a subscription someday and then you keep getting charged month over month, years over years, and you don't know how to stop it. You don't know where you'll be getting charged. And we have enough forums where people in US and West have complained about this, right? Now, India, as an ecosystem, is developing towards that. The subscription economy in India is still fairly small, but it is getting built towards that. Customers don't understand, again, like when customers are transacting digitally for the first time, they have not used subscription for sure, right? Like majority of our customers
they wouldn't even know that
digitally today.
They wouldn't even know that the money is going to be debited every month.
Right? And yes, you can put it in English, you can put it in writing, but like given the way customers are and the number of customers who are transacting online for the first time, it's hard for them to understand that fine print that, okay, this is not 350 rupees right now, but 350 rupees every month. And for some of those customers, that could be significant amounts, right? And when then they keep getting debited month over month, they might not know, and they'll just, what will a customer do in that case? They'll go block their card and not use not use a debit card or credit card again in their life, right? You don't want that to happen, right? So again, I think the kind of the solution management platform that the regulators have pushed for, and again, they extended deadline multiple times on this, but the kind of subscription platform that they are pushing for is, I think it makes a lot of sense because the, and I think not just in India, but I think globally people will look up to this and copy this because the customers face the same problem, not just in India, but even in mature markets, and there's no solution. This the recurring payment solution that the RBI has envisaged, and we are one of the players who are enabling that for a lot of banks. We have seen that the way it puts customer at front and center and fully controlled, right? So if you are being charged 350 rupees every month, you get a SMS 24 hours before that you're going to be charged. You can go to your mobile banking app and choose whether you want to continue the subscription or you want to cancel the subscription. So I think that kind of innovation is really needed in a country like India. And as I said, right, like you need to tread this line carefully on both sides, right? Give enough time for the ecosystem to mature, but at the same time, look at the long-term picture. Look at where you want the ecosystem to shape up to, and create regulations towards that, right? And I think there'll be always this constant tussle where the industry might want a lot more relaxation, where the regulators might be constantly worried about that one single person, person who's transacting digitally for the first time, sitting in a remote town somewhere, who has no idea what this innovation and digitalization means for him. But if he loses that 1,000 rupees, that might be his life saving, right? So we need to tread that line carefully. And I think that's where we are going.
No, I totally agree with you. I think India is in a very unique situation where, especially when it comes to the 75 to 80% of the economy, right? They are not well aware of how to use technology, and the awareness becomes a real big problem. The education of these things become a real big problem. Do you also think that, like, because the SMB market, especially when we go down to the bottom 80% and not just the top 20%, uh, the problem related to educating them about technology, the benefits, and how to educate them about just how to use these things, that becomes a major roadblock for like for expanding things into like just having them to download an app, and on just one click you can get some loan, right? What do you think can be the roadblocks there?
Yeah, no, I think this is one thing where, while we can keep pushing the regulators and policymakers, I think this is one thing where the industry also needs to own responsibility, right? Like the industry needs to be responsible in the way they market their products, in the way they push their products. Are you informing the customer of the right things? Are you onboarding the right kind of customer for the thing you're giving out? Are you giving a loan to a customer who cannot afford such a loan?
Right.
And knowing that you're giving out that loan at exorbitant interest rates and stuff, which might be a death knell for some of these individuals or companies, right? So I think that is something that the industry itself needs to do better. I think we recently saw RBI's report on digital lending that came out, right? The working group, right? And the basic idea there, and I totally agree with that, is self-regulation, where the people in the industry need to come together, create self-regulatory bodies, and create a code of conduct on how you operate. And while that is for lending in particular, I think that applies to everything, right? From payments to investments to everything else, right? Like where multiple players in the industry come together and say that, okay, this is what we'll do and this is what we'll not do, so that it doesn't harm the long-term interests of the industry. Because like one or two people in the industry do something which is not right, and the regulator has no choice but to create regulations which affect everyone else in the ecosystem, right? And that limits innovation. So we might blame regulators when such actions happen, but we need to be aware that those actions are responses to things that somebody in the industry is already doing, right? And that's the way to solve it for really.
It has to be ethical in a way that it doesn't impact the users in a bad way, and also it needs to be in the long term benefit of the whole ecosystem and not just in the short term benefit of a particular business. And I think that's the tricky problem to solve, and like going for a self-regulated body, then where people come together and build code of conduct where even regulators are involved, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So I think, for example, like we saw during the crypto situation, like a lot of these things were happening, right? Like things are being marketed and in a way that doesn't make sense, and there'll be gullible customers who will be caught in that, who feel that, okay, this is a very safe instrument and I can invest, right? Like it is fine if a customer is aware of the risks, invests in it, but you need to ensure that you are getting those customers and not somebody who's investing their life savings into a very risky instrument, right? So I
Yeah.
think there's that fine balance, and I think that is one thing where the industry and the people in the industry need to solve first before waiting for regulations to come in.
Yeah, one thing, I'm glad you brought up crypto. One thing that worries me about it is that the lack of awareness and how if it's not regulated in the right way, a lot of people will take it as an opportunity to do frauds and to just thug a lot of
Yep.
uneducated users, because crypto being such a high volatile uh, instrument, if 10 users might be, definitely they might be making a lot of money, but we have to also realize that the money that they're making is definitely of someone else's making a poor investment choice, and it's just the smarter people trying to uh, take money from the non-smarter people. It's in a way that that is something I've been thinking about lately a lot. What do you think crypto has what kind of role crypto has to play when it comes to expanding digital payments across the industry, and not just, let's say, SMBs in particular?
Yeah, see, I think crypto and blockchain both, right? I think very interesting base of the layer technologies, right? Like, and I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that can be built out there, right? Like, and we are keeping close watch on it as Razorpay, and I keep reading about things and the kind of innovations that are happening in US around lending using on top of crypto, and remittances on top of crypto, the reconciliation on top of crypto, and a lot of these use cases which can be done far more efficiently without needing a trusted central body,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's the unique advantage that crypto has. But like anything, right? Like the when regulators come in and they'll have to judge based on the worst use case, not on the best use case, right? Because
Right.
if there is one player or a couple of players who are using that as a means to tug, in your words, right, customers, then the regulators will have no option but to look at the entire industry in a very negative way.
Yeah.
And I think that has been the problem with crypto for a lot of time, right? And I think now we are reaching a point where there are enough good players who are trying to form industry bodies and who are going back to regulators and saying, and that is what happened in US as well. A couple of good players need to go back to regulators, need to go back to policymakers and say, regulators in these ways, right? Because when you're such a new technology and you're such a new ecosystem out there, right? Like even sometimes even regulators might not be aware, right? But what all is positive about it and what all is negative about it, and you need to go, okay, these are the positive things that we do, and regulate us so that we can continue to do these positive things, and you can block the negative stuff that is happening
Yeah.
out there. And I think we are still waiting, all waiting to look forward to the crypto bill that is going to be tabled in the parliament, and see how that shape across. But I have full faith that the way regulations have happened in India, like there'll be safeguards and checks. But I think as long as some of the real use cases and the positive use cases are allowed, I think India will be able to move forward in crypto. We might have to lose some things because of the bad actors, and some of those things need to be regulated so that the average individual doesn't suffer
Yeah.
because of volatility and because of the kind of movements that happen in crypto market every day. But at the same time, if the positive use cases are allowed, I think we'll all be in a good shape
Yeah.
to support it. So let's wait for it. But I'm
I think
still looking for it cautiously.
regulators are also much positive about blockchain as a technology rather than particular cryptocurrencies, and that's why even they are launching a currency, central currency, on blockchain. And I was reading it somewhere that where th- we always compare, like a lot of people tend to compare like what's happening in Singapore or the other countries, or the European countries, like how there's a digital banking license and things like that. But uh, I was reading the point of view of the regulators is that India is in a very unique situation and it cannot be compared to those economies because of just the population size and the per capita income
Yep.
and a lot of other things which needs to be solved first. We are a country of 1.4 billion people, and even if we speak geographically, we and even politically, we are very different from China. So we have very unique challenges which none of the other countries might have, due to which we probably have to solve those problems first and then come to the problems of, let's say, how to go about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So that's an interesting take. I think we just have a minute to go. And I'm checking if there are any questions from the audience. Uh, no, I don't think there are. Um, great, Harshil. I think we can wrap this up. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sambhav. I think it was really fun chatting with you, and I think we covered a lot of ground here. And thanks, Sammy, for inviting for this conference.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, IMI, to do this. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Harshil. Thank you so much, Sambhav. Thank you to all the delegates for joining India Digital Summit. Stay tuned for a lot more.